8. Rare soul traits that make you powerful, but misunderstood. Have you ever wondered why you feel everything so deeply? Why silence feels like home? Why people react so strongly to your presence, either drawn to you instantly or uncomfortable, around you without reason? Have you ever sensed a purpose inside you that no one else seems to understand, a destiny, pulling you towards something bigger, even if you can't explain it in words? If these experiences shape your life, there's a reason. Carl Jung called it the rare path of individuation. Alan Watts called it the awakening of the hidden self. Today you're about to discover the 8 signs you have a rare soul, the kind of soul that sees deeper, feels deeper, and lives in a reality that most people never even touch. Part 1. The hidden self and the foundation of a rare soul. A rare soul is not defined by external uniqueness, but by a profound inner configuration that resists the ordinary patterns of the collective mind. In depth psychology, Carl Jung describes individuals who possess heightened access to the unconscious as people who unknowingly carry a different psychic blueprint. They do not simply think differently. They perceive reality through layers of intuition, symbolism, and internal resonance that most people never stop long enough to notice. Alan Watts expands on this inner phenomenon by calling it the hidden self, the deeper layer of being that exists beyond the persona, our public mask, and beyond the ego which clings to control and certainty. Part of understanding the rare soul is understanding why they often feel like they're living in 2 worlds at once. The external world of social rules, expectations, and established roles, and the internal world of intuition, insight, and metaphysical awareness that runs silently but powerfully beneath the surface. What makes a soul rare is not superiority, but sensitivity, an uncommon psychological permeability that allows a person to detect meanings that others overlook. Jung believed that most people live their entire lives within the boundaries of their persona, behaving as the culture expects, identifying with their titles, achievements, and reputations. The rare soul, however, experiences a rupture with that identity. They sense that the persona is merely a costume, and that the truth of who they are lies beneath all the social conditioning. Alan Watts often emphasized that the greatest illusion is the belief that we are only the roles we play: the worker, the parent, the friend, the achiever, the responsible one, the rebel, the intelligent one. These roles become so rigid that people forget they are wearing masks. Rare souls, however, feel the friction between the mask and the inner self until the gap becomes impossible to ignore. This internal conflict with the persona often begins early in life. A rare soul typically grows up sensing that they are somehow out of sync with their surroundings, not because they're incapable of adapting, but because adaptation feels like betrayal. They learn the rules of conformity, but something in them refuses to reduce life into a series of mechanical behaviors. Jung would say this is the unconscious pushing from below, urging the individual to maintain integrity with their deeper nature. When individuals sense an uncomfortable truth inside themselves, something that contradicts what they're encouraged to be, they often face a psychological crossroads. Many suppress it to fit into society, but rare souls cannot silence this inner truth for long. It presses against the surface, demanding expression and authenticity. An essential aspect of the rare soul is that they experience the world symbolically rather than literally. While most people only see surface-level events, rare souls intuitively sense the significance behind those events. They interpret human behavior using emotional, energetic, and psychological cues that are invisible to the typical observer. Jung emphasized that symbolic perception is a hallmark of mature individuation, the process in which a person becomes whole by uniting their conscious awareness with their unconscious depths. A rare soul naturally leans toward this union even if they cannot articulate it. They feel the presence of meaning patterns in coincidences, intuitive warnings, sudden internal shifts, dreams that feel more real than waking life, and synchronicities that appear in critical moments. One of the defining qualities of a rare soul is heightened emotional intelligence. But unlike the modern understanding of emotional intelligence, which focuses on social skills, the rare soul's emotional intelligence operates on a deeper frequency. They don't just understand emotions, they feel them in a way that borders on metaphysical sensitivity. Jung referred to this as an animation of the unconscious, where the psyche responds to internal and external stimuli with extraordinary perceptiveness. This emotional depth is not always comfortable. For rare souls, emotions are not subtle movements but powerful waves. Joy is expansive and transformative. Sadness cuts to the bone. Love feels cosmic. Heartbreak feels like spiritual death. Alan Watts would say that a rare soul suffers because they resist the artificial separation between themselves and the world. They sense that everything is interconnected, and therefore every experience, good or bad, carries a sacred significance. This interconnectedness causes rare souls to process life in a holistic way. Events don't happen to them, events happen through them. Feelings don't just move through their mind, they move through their entire being. Rare souls often find it difficult to explain their internal world to others because language feels too limited to capture the depth of their perceptions. They may stay silent, not out of shyness, but because the translation from inner truth to outer language feels insufficient. Another foundation of the rare soul is their relationship with solitude. Jung argued that only in solitude can a person hear the voice of the self, the deepest layer of the psyche where individuation occurs. Rare souls instinctively gravitate towards silence, not to escape life, but to tune into the frequency of their inner world. They become drained by superficial interactions, noisy environments, and emotionally chaotic people. Solitude gives them space to reconnect with themselves and to process the information they've absorbed throughout the day. Alan Watts frequently taught that solitude is the place where illusion dissolves and the real self emerges. Rare souls, therefore, are not lonely, even when alone. Their inner world is rich enough to sustain them. However, solitude also exposes them to their own shadow, the parts of themselves that society encourages them to reject. Jung described the shadow as the repository of all that is unlived, suppressed, or feared. While many people avoid their shadow, rare souls are often forced to confront it because they cannot tolerate self-deception. They sense when something inside them is not aligned, and they feel an internal pull toward integrating the rejected parts of themselves. This confrontation with the shadow often manifests as periods of emotional turbulence, existential questioning, sudden clarity, or dramatic transformations in personality. Rare souls are reborn multiple times throughout their lives because they continuously shed identities that no longer reflect their evolving self. Another characteristic of rare souls is an unusual degree of introspection. While most people analyze external circumstances, rare souls are compelled to analyze themselves. They study their motivations, impulses, fears, and desires with a psychological sharpness that often surprises others. Jung would describe this as the unconscious attempting to communicate with the conscious mind. When a rare soul becomes aware of something within themselves, whether a talent, a flaw, or an insight, they cannot ignore it. This self-awareness can be both a blessing and a burden. It brings wisdom, but also forces them to confront truths that most people would prefer not to see. Rare souls also possess an intuitive ability to understand others at a depth that borders on psychic awareness. They pick up on micro-expressions, tone shifts, unspoken expectations, and emotional inconsistencies. They detect lies easily, not because they are suspicious, but because they sense the mismatch between someone's words and their energy. Jung believed that intuitive perception arises from the inferior functions of the psyche that grow stronger when the unconscious begins to integrate. To the rare soul, this intuition doesn't feel magical. It feels natural. They simply know things without knowing how they know them. Alan Watts would argue that this is because the rare soul has a more fluid relationship with the unconscious. Instead of resisting it, they listen to it. Another hallmark of the rare soul is the sensation of not belonging. This is not the typical feeling of being socially awkward or different for the sake of standing out. It's a deep psychological dissonance, an awareness that their pace, their values, and their inner priorities are not aligned with the collective mindset. Jung observed that individuation always separates a person from the herd because the herd defines identity through conformity. Rare souls do not rebel intentionally. They simply cannot live in a way that feels false. They crave meaning over routine authenticity, over approval truth, over comfort. Because of this, they often experience life as if they're observing rather than participating. They can be surrounded by people yet feel like they are on a different wavelength entirely. This sense of non-belonging often intensifies their search for purpose. Rare souls do not tolerate a life that feels meaningless or mechanical. They feel internally summoned to something greater even if they cannot articulate what it is. Jung would describe this as the pull of the self, the organizing principle of the psyche that guides a person toward wholeness. Rare souls may not know the destination, but they feel compelled toward inner alignment. This leads them to explore spirituality, philosophy, psychology, creativity, or personal development at a depth that most people never reach. They are not seekers by choice, but by instinct. Another aspect of the rare soul is their relationship with suffering. While suffering breaks many people, rare souls often transform through it. They treat pain as a messenger, not an enemy. Jung believed that suffering is one of the primary pathways through which the unconscious communicates with the conscious mind. Rare souls experience suffering with intensity, but they also extract meaning from it. They grow stronger, wiser, and more compassionate, because they allow suffering to reshape them. Alan Watts often spoke about the paradox of pain, that resisting it makes it worse while accepting it transforms it. Rare souls instinctively lean into this paradox, which is why they evolve so quickly. Their empathy is profound but selective. While they feel deeply, they do not open themselves to everyone. Their empathy is not naive, it is discerning. They can sense the emotional capacity of others and adjust their energy accordingly. They may distance themselves from people who drain them, not out of judgment, but out of self-preservation. Jung emphasized that individuation requires boundaries, choosing what nurtures the soul and rejecting what harms it. Rare souls understand this instinctively. They know when someone's presence feels heavy or misaligned, and they step back without guilt. Another defining quality is the ability to see patterns. Rare souls have a natural talent for connecting dots, psychological, emotional, symbolic, or even metaphysical. They recognize cycles in relationships, behaviors, and life events. Jung called this capacity The archetypal eye, a psychological lens that sees universal patterns beneath personal experiences. Alan Watts would describe this as understanding the rhythm of the universe. Rare souls see life less as a linear path and more as a series of interconnected movements. They sense when a chapter is ending, when a lesson is repeating, or when an opportunity is emerging. Their creativity is not always artistic, but is always intuitive. Rare souls create meaning, connections, insights, and perspectives that others fail to see. They can transform an experience into wisdom, a conversation into understanding, a mistake into clarity. Jung believed that creativity is a sign of a healthy relationship with the unconscious. Rare souls often feel ideas flowing through them rather than coming from them. They are channels of insight, not owners of it. Another foundational trait is non-attachment to societal validation. Rare souls are often misunderstood because they do not chase what society rewards: status, popularity, conformity, or material success. They are not indifferent to these things. They simply recognize that external validation has no power to fulfill them. Alan Watts argued that the greatest trap is living for applause. Rare souls see through this illusion. They understand that meaning cannot be outsourced to others. Their satisfaction comes from inner alignment, not external approval. Despite their depth, rare souls are not always serious or intense. They often have a unique sense of humor, dry, observational, philosophical. They see the absurdity in human behavior and can laugh at themselves easily. This humor is a form of psychological resilience. Jung believed that humor helps the psyche avoid inflation, an ego that becomes too focused on its superiority. Rare souls, because they understand their own complexity, rarely fall into this trap. Their humility is authentic because it comes from self-awareness, not self-denial. Relationships for rare souls are both profound and challenging. They crave deep emotional and intellectual intimacy, but such connections are rare. They prefer solitude over shallow interactions. When they do connect with someone, the relationship tends to be intense, transformative, and soul-shaping. They are drawn to authenticity and repelled by superficiality. Jung believed that true connection occurs when two individuals relate self to self, not persona to persona. Rare souls understand this intuitively, which is why they struggle with relationships that remain on the surface. Their energy affects others strongly. Some people feel drawn to them while others feel intimidated or uncomfortable. Rare souls can awaken suppressed emotions in others simply by being themselves. Their presence acts as a mirror reflecting the truths others avoid. Jung explained that people often project their shadow onto those who possess qualities they lack. This explains why rare souls may be admired by some and disliked by others without even trying. Internal conflict is common for them because they are always negotiating between their depth and the external world's superficiality. They may oscillate between engagement and withdrawal, passion and detachment, clarity and confusion. This is not instability, but the natural rhythm of a psyche integrating conscious and unconscious aspects. They often need time alone after social interactions to recalibrate. They may appear inconsistent, but their inner direction is steady. They are always moving toward authenticity. Rare souls often experience a sense of timelessness. They may feel older than their age, as if they have lived multiple emotional lifetimes. Jung attributed this to the influence of archetypes, ancient psychological structures that shape human experience. Rare souls consciously or unconsciously tap into these archetypes, giving them a sense of wisdom, maturity, or déjà vu. Alan Watts explained this as remembering one's deeper nature the part of the self that is not limited by time or identity. Because of their depth, rare souls often face periods of existential questioning. They contemplate purpose, fate, consciousness, and the nature of reality. These questions do not overwhelm them, they intrigue them. They are not afraid to explore the dark corners of the psyche. Jung believed that psychological maturity requires confronting the existential questions that most people avoid. Rare souls do this naturally. Their inner world is so rich that they often feel like they are carrying multiple dimensions inside themselves. They think in layers, feel in layers, and process life in layers. This multidimensional thinking allows them to understand complex situations intuitively, but it can also make them feel misunderstood. They struggle to simplify their thoughts because simplicity feels dishonest. They prefer depth over clarity when depth reveals truth. A final foundational element of the rare soul is the sense that their life is guided by something beyond logic. They notice synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that signal alignment between inner and outer worlds. Jung believes synchronicity reveals when a person is living in harmony with their deeper self. Rare souls experience synchronicity frequently because they are more receptive to symbolic communication from the unconscious. Alan Watts would say that they flow with life rather than resist it. Part 2. Signs 1-3 of a rare soul. Sign 1. You feel more deeply than most people. Feeling deeply is not simply heightened emotion, it is a different mode of perception altogether. People with a rare soul do not move through the world casually, they absorb it. Every interaction, every tone of voice, every shift in the emotional atmosphere penetrates them in ways that others cannot understand. Carl Jung described individuals like this as having a porous psychic boundary where the line between the inner world and the outer world becomes permeable. They do not just observe life, they experience it at full intensity, as if the volume of existence is always turned up higher for them. This sensitivity does not mean fragility. In fact, deep feelers often develop a powerful resilience because they are forced to navigate waves of emotion from an early age. While others may suppress or avoid uncomfortable feelings, rare souls have no such luxury. Emotions arrive unfiltered, demanding attention, understanding, and integration. This constant internal engagement makes them emotionally intelligent in a way that goes far beyond social skills. They become experts in interpreting emotional nuance, body language, contradictions, and hidden suffering. They feel when something is wrong even before words are spoken. Alan Watts wrote that people who see deeply into life often feel deeply because they're touching the root of their own existence. When you see the interconnectedness of everything, you cannot help but feel the ripple of each experience. Rare souls feel not only their own emotions, but also the emotions of others. They may experience sadness in a room where no one cries, and they may feel heaviness in someone who says everything is fine. This emotional attunement has a mystical quality to it, as if they have an internal antenna tuned into frequencies that others never perceive. There is a cost to this depth, though. Feeling too deeply can overwhelm the nervous system, leading to emotional exhaustion, burnout, and the need for long periods of solitude. Rare souls often isolate themselves after intense emotional exchanges, not because they reject people, but because they need to process everything they absorbed. Jung believed that emotionally sensitive individuals needed more psychological maintenance, as their psyche is constantly processing signals and symbols that others overlook. The blessing of this sensitivity is that it enables profound compassion. Rare souls are not empathetic by choice, they are empathetic by nature. They feel compelled to soothe, to understand, to help, not because they want approval, but because they cannot ignore suffering. Their compassion is instinctive. Jung called this capacity an expression of the self, the deeper center of the psyche that seeks connection, harmony, and balance. The rare soul's emotional depth is therefore not a weakness. It is a sign of their alignment with a higher psychological structure. But this depth also creates a sense of alienation. Rare souls often feel misunderstood because others cannot match their emotional wavelength. They may be labeled too sensitive, too intense, or too dramatic, but these labels only reflect the discomfort that shallow people feel in the presence of depth. Rare souls do not feel too much, others feel too little. Their deep emotions are not an exaggeration, they are an accurate reflection of their internal landscape and their connection to reality beneath the surface. Over time, rare souls learn to protect this sensitivity. They become selective about whom they share their hearts with. They set boundaries, withdraw from chaos, and create emotional sanctuaries for themselves. They learn that their depth is a treasure, a gift that only a few people can understand and even fewer can handle. Sign 2. You have always felt like you don't belong to the crowd. Not belonging is one of the clearest signals of a rare soul, but this feeling is often misunderstood. It's not rebellion, and it's not social awkwardness. It's a psychological dissonance, a sense that your internal frequency does not match the frequency of the world around you. Jung argued that individuals who are drawn toward individuation, the process of becoming their truest self, inevitably separate from the collective mindset. Rare souls feel this separation intuitively. Even as children, they notice that they perceive life differently from their peers. While others chase approval, attention, or conformity, rare souls crave meaning, truth, and authenticity. This mismatch creates a lifelong sensation of standing slightly apart from the crowd. Rare souls often feel like observers, as if they are watching life unfold from a vantage point just outside the frame. They participate in social environments, but they do not feel defined by them. They blend in when necessary, but never fully merge. Jung believed that rare individuals carry an outsider archetype, a symbolic role within the psyche that pushes them to question norms rather than absorb them. Alan Watts spoke about this sensation, frequently explaining that people who feel out of place are often awakening to the fact that society's roles are artificial. When you sense that life is more than a set of routines and expectations, you begin to feel misaligned with the typical human game. Rare souls feel this misalignment early. They may try to fit in, but every attempt feels like wearing shoes that are one size too small, uncomfortable, restrictive, and impossible to walk in for long. This sense of not belonging does not make the rare soul lonely, it makes them inwardly connected. They find companionship in ideas, books, creativity, solitude, nature, spirituality, or a small number of deep relationships. They do not crave crowds, they crave resonance. They prefer the company of one meaningful person over a room of superficial interactions. Their circle is small but sacred. Because they stand outside the crowd, rare souls often see what others cannot see. They notice patterns, hypocrisies, illusions, and psychological dynamics that escape the collective. While the crowd becomes lost in trends, rare souls look beneath the surface. They question the purpose behind societal behavior. They examine the motivations of others. They see how culture shapes behavior, how people conform to avoid discomfort, how insecurity drives consumption, how fear drives conformity. They see through propaganda, social expectations, and collective illusions. This ability to see through societal illusions sets them even further apart from the crowd. Ultimately, seeing hidden motivations allows rare souls to form relationships based on truth rather than performance. They connect with people on a level most individuals never experience. When you are not busy performing for the crowd, you have the space to develop a relationship with your authentic self. Jung would say that those who feel like outsiders are on the path to individuation sooner than others. They are already breaking away from the collective unconscious and forming their own identity. The rare soul's inability to fit in is actually the beginning of their liberation. Sign 3. You see the hidden motivations behind people's actions. Rare souls can read people in ways that defy explanation. They see beyond words, beyond facial expressions, beyond appearances. They sense the energy behind the behavior. Jung believed that intuitive individuals often have direct access to the unconscious contents of others. Their minds work like psychological X-rays, revealing internal states that the person themselves may not be aware of. A rare soul typically grows up sensing that they are somehow out of sync with their surroundings, not because they're incapable of adapting, but because adaptation feels like betrayal. They learn the rules of conformity, but something in them refuses to reduce life into a series of mechanical behaviors. Jung would say this is the unconscious pushing from below, urging the individual to maintain integrity with their deeper nature. This intuitive insight is not something rare souls develop intentionally. It emerges from their natural sensitivity to emotional and symbolic cues. They pick up on patterns in speech, inconsistencies in stories, micro-expressions, nervous habits, defensive reactions, and subtle expressions of insecurity or fear. While others may take things at face value, rare souls instinctively question what lies beneath. They look for the story behind the story. Others sense that they cannot hide their true selves, which leads either to deep trust or intense discomfort. Some feel drawn to the rare soul because they feel seen in a way they have never experienced. Others avoid them because being seen so clearly feels threatening. This ability also gives rare souls strong internal warnings. They feel intuitive red flags long before there is evidence. They sense when someone's intentions are impure. They detect dishonesty through emotional resonance rather than logical proof. Jung called this psychological function intuition, the ability to judge possibilities, motives, and patterns without conscious reasoning. This intuition protects rare souls from harmful individuals, but it can also isolate them when others fail to understand their insights. Seeing people clearly is a gift, but it comes with emotional cost. Rare souls struggle when they see potential in people who choose not to grow. They feel emotional pain when they sense someone's self-deception or destructive patterns. They may attempt to help guide or heal others only to be misunderstood or rejected. The rare soul must learn that insight cannot save those who resist their own truth. Their perceptiveness also makes them uncomfortable with manipulation, selfishness, or superficial relationships. They value honesty and authenticity because anything less feels emotionally toxic. Alan Watts often spoke about the paradox of pain, that resisting it makes it worse, while accepting it transforms it. Rare souls instinctively lean into this paradox, which is why they evolve so quickly. Their empathy is profound but selective. While they feel deeply, they do not open themselves to everyone. Their empathy is not naive, it is discerning. They can sense the emotional capacity of others and adjust their energy accordingly. They see how culture shapes behavior, how people conform to avoid discomfort, how insecurity drives consumption, how fear drives conformity. They see through propaganda, social expectations, and collective illusions. This ability to see through societal illusions sets them even further apart from the crowd. Ultimately, seeing hidden motivations allows rare souls to form relationships based on truth rather than performance. They connect with people on a level most individuals never experience. When they meet someone who is authentic, open, and emotionally mature, the connection feels electric, a kind of recognition between two souls who see the world through the same depth. Part 3. Signs 4. 6 of a rare soul. Sign 4. You are drawn to silence and solitude in a world that fears both. Silence is not an escape for you, it is a return. While the modern world fills every corner of life with noise, stimulation, and distraction, you feel an instinctive pull toward quiet spaces. Jung argued that only in silence can an individual hear the voice of the unconscious. Rare souls naturally gravitate toward this inner environment because it feels like home. They are not avoiding life, they are tuning into its deeper layers. For many people, silence is uncomfortable because it forces them to confront their unprocessed emotions and unresolved conflicts. But for rare souls, silence feels like clarity. It is the place where their intuitive insights emerge, where their creativity awakens, where their nervous system resets. They feel most aligned with themselves when external noise fades and inner truth rises. This relationship with silence often starts early in life. Rare souls may have preferred quiet corners, solitary hobbies, reflective activities, or long moments of staring out the window behaviors that adults labeled as daydreaming. But rare souls do not daydream, they travel inward. They access states of deep thought, introspection, and imagination that others rarely experience. Alan Watts believed that solitude is not the absence of connection, but the birthplace of genuine connection. When rare souls are alone, they are not lonely, they are surrounded by the richness of their inner world. They explore ideas, memories, possibilities, and intuitions. They feel whole within themselves, not because they reject others, but because they understand that connection begins with self-alignment. Rare souls often feel overstimulated in chaotic environments. Loud conversations, crowded spaces, artificial brightness, and emotional discord drain them quickly. They may feel like their energy is leaking out of them simply by being in the wrong place. Their need for solitude is not a preference. It is physiological and psychological necessity. In solitude, they process the emotional information they absorb from others. They sort through insights, feelings, impressions, and symbolic messages. Jung believed that rare individuals experience a deeper integration process because their unconscious communicates more vigorously. Solitude is the space where this integration finally happens. Without it, rare souls feel fragmented. This need for silence also explains why rare souls do not form superficial relationships easily. They require depth, presence, and emotional honesty. Anything less feels like noise. They are drawn to people who honor silence, who understand the sacredness of quiet moments, who can sit with them without filling the space with unnecessary words. For rare souls, silence between two people is not empty. It is a shared sanctuary. While others may fear being alone, rare souls fear losing themselves in the noise of the world. They know that silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of self. Sign 5. You experience unexplained inner awakenings and psychological rebirths. Rare souls often go through intense inner transformations that cannot be explained logically. These awakenings are not triggered by external events, but by internal shifts, sudden realizations, emotional breakthroughs, or intuitive revelations. Jung referred to these moments as eruptions of the unconscious, where deeper layers of the psyche push into consciousness, demanding attention and integration. These awakenings can feel overwhelming. They may arrive as sudden clarity about a relationship, a career, a life direction, or a long-standing emotional pattern. Rare souls often feel as if they wake up one morning and see their entire life differently, as if someone changed the lighting in their mind. What once felt normal suddenly feels intolerable. What once felt confusing becomes clear. Alan Watts described this process as shedding layers of illusion. He said that awakening is not becoming something new, but remembering what you always were beneath ego and conditioning. Rare souls experience this repeatedly throughout their lives. Each awakening peels away a layer of false identity roles, expectations, fears, and limitations, revealing a deeper, truer self. These awakenings often coincide with periods of withdrawal or emotional upheaval. Rare souls may feel disconnected from the world during these transitions. They may lose interest in old habits, friendships, or routines. They may feel called toward new environments, new interests, or new spiritual practices. Their inner compass shifts direction without explanation. This internal realignment is part of the individuation process, Jung's term for becoming one's true self. Rare souls also experience the dark night of the soul, a period of emotional darkness that leads to profound transformation. This is not depression in the clinical sense, it is a psychological rebirth. The old self dissolves so a more authentic self can emerge. During these periods, rare souls may feel lost, confused, or empty, but if they listen closely, they sense a quiet truth forming beneath the chaos. Something inside them is rearranging. After every internal awakening, rare souls emerge with greater clarity, stronger intuition, and sharper discernment. They outgrow environments that no longer align with their evolving consciousness. They abandon old fears and embrace deeper truths. They may suddenly understand patterns that confused them for years. They may gain spiritual insights that feel ancient and familiar. These awakenings often make rare souls seem unpredictable to others. In depth psychology, Carl Jung describes individuals who possess heightened access to the unconscious as people who unknowingly carry a different psychic blueprint. They do not simply think differently. They perceive reality through layers of intuition, symbolism, and internal resonance that most people never stop long enough to notice. This alone sets them apart. Sign 6. You perceive time, life, and fate differently from others. Rare souls do not experience reality through the same lens as most people. Their relationship with time, life, and destiny is fundamentally different. Jung believed that individuals deeply connected to the unconscious develop a symbolic perception of reality. Time becomes less chronological and more psychological. Rare souls often feel as if they live outside the conventional rhythm of life. They sense that life unfolds in cycles rather than straight lines. They recognize patterns repeating across relationships, opportunities, challenges, and emotional themes. They understand that fate does not appear randomly, but through synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences Jung described as bridges between the inner and outer worlds. Rare souls notice synchronicities constantly, not because they seek them, but because they are more attuned to symbolic communication. While others rush through life, rare souls notice its subtle movements. They see meaning in moments that others ignore. A stranger's comment, a recurring number, a sudden intuition, a dream that lingers, all of these carry significance. Rare souls understand that life speaks in whispers before it speaks in storms. Their relationship with time is also unique. They often feel ahead of their age, as if their consciousness developed earlier than their peers. They may feel older on the inside, wise, observant, patient. At the same time, they may experience moments of childlike wonder, curiosity, and expansiveness. This fluidity between ages is a sign of a psyche not bound by linear development. Alan Watts believed that rare souls experience time as a continuous present. The past and future fold into the now. Rare souls often feel nostalgic for things they have never lived or familiar with places they have never been. They sense that their soul carries memories beyond this lifetime, whether metaphorically or metaphysically. They experience déjà vu more profoundly, as if their consciousness recognizes patterns before the mind does. This different perception of time also changes their relationship with goals and success. Rare souls do not chase life. They allow life to unfold. They do not believe in forcing outcomes. They trust timing, alignment, and intuition. They understand that rushing creates resistance, while patience creates clarity. They may appear slow or indecisive to others, but in reality they are waiting for the right moment, the moment that feels aligned with their inner truth. Their view of fate is just as unique. Rare souls sense that their life is guided, not controlled by an inner blueprint. They feel called to certain people, places, and experiences. They feel pushed away from others. This guidance is subtle but persistent. Jung described this as the self orchestrating the individuation process, creating situations that force growth and aligning the individual with their deeper purpose. Rare souls do not fear change because they understand its necessity. They do not cling to the past because they feel the future calling. They move through life like travelers led by intuition rather than maps. This ability to follow inner direction sets them apart from those who rely exclusively on logic or societal expectations. While others may see life as a sequence of tasks and obligations, rare souls see it as a symbolic journey. Every person they meet reflects a lesson. Every challenge reveals a shadow. Every loss creates rebirth. Every encounter carries meaning. They live with a sense of depth and destiny that others may find difficult to grasp. Their perception is not mystical. It is the natural outcome of being connected to both the conscious and unconscious dimensions of the psyche. Rare souls experience life in its full psychological and spiritual depth, while others see only the surface. Part 4. Signs 7-8 plus Deep Psychological Synthesis. Sign 7. You either attract people intensely or repel them instantly. One of the most striking characteristics of a rare soul is the extreme effect they have on others. People do not feel neutral around them. The rare soul's energy acts like a mirror, one that reflects the hidden layers of whoever stands before them. Jung explained that when someone carries a strong connection to their unconscious, they unconsciously evoke the shadow material of others. This means that rare souls activate the unresolved emotional content, insecurities, fears, and suppressed desires of those around them. Some people are drawn to this energy because they sense authenticity. They feel safe, seen, and understood in a way they rarely experience. These individuals often describe the rare soul as familiar, comforting, or transformational. They sense depth and honesty, and they are attracted to the rare soul's ability to empathize and perceive beyond the surface. Relationships formed in this context become rapid, intense, and emotionally meaningful, but others feel threatened by this same presence. They sense that the rare soul sees through their masks, something most people spend their entire lives perfecting. Jung argued that the rare soul is someone who has begun the process of individuation at a deeper level than most. They move beyond the persona. They confront the shadow. They integrate their unconscious. They listen to their intuition. They follow their inner compass instead of societal expectations. These qualities make them uncommon not because few people possess the potential, but because few people embrace the journey. Becoming a rare soul is not about uniqueness, it is about courage. These individuals often describe the rare soul as familiar, comforting, or transformational. They sense depth and honesty, and they are attracted to the rare soul's ability to empathize and perceive beyond the surface. Relationships formed in this context become rapid, intense, and emotionally meaningful, but others feel threatened by this same presence. They sense that the rare soul sees through their masks, something most people spend their entire lives perfecting. These individuals often describe the rare soul as familiar, comforting, or transformational. They sense depth and honesty, and they are attracted to the rare soul's ability to empathize and perceive beyond the surface. Relationships formed in this context become rapid, intense, and emotionally meaningful, but others feel threatened by this same presence. They sense that the rare soul sees through their masks, something most people spend their entire lives perfecting. Their energy is charged with intuition, emotional depth, and psychological truth. People sense this even subconsciously and react strongly. Because of this magnetic effect, rare souls often become targets for envy, admiration, idealization, or projection. They may be misunderstood frequently, not because they are unclear, but because people interpret them through the lens of their own wounds. This dynamic can make relationships challenging. Their energy is charged with intuition, emotional depth, and psychological truth. People sense this even subconsciously and react strongly. Because of this magnetic effect, rare souls often become targets for envy, admiration, idealization, or projection. They may be misunderstood frequently, not because they are unclear, but because people interpret them through the lens of their own wounds. This dynamic can make relationships challenging. For rare souls, this guidance is particularly strong. They feel pushed or pulled towards certain environments, certain people, certain paths, even when they cannot logically explain why. They experience purpose not as an idea, but as a sensation, an inner call that grows louder with time. This pull often shows up early in life. Rare souls sense that they're different, not in a superior sense, but in a directional sense. They feel like their life is part of a larger narrative, one that involves awakening, healing, creating, or guiding. They may move repeatedly through cycles of breakdown and breakthrough, each one bringing them closer to clarity. Their career paths, relationships, and life choices often appear unconventional because they do not follow linear logic, they follow intuitive alignment. Alan Watts explained this phenomenon by saying that individuals who feel called toward a purpose are remembering something ancient within themselves. Purpose is not discovered, it is revealed. Rare souls experience this revelation in layers. Sometimes it comes in the form of a dream, sometimes through inner knowing, sometimes through repeated synchronicities. Sometimes through emotional discomfort that pushes them away from what is wrong. Rare souls are deeply affected by environments that misalign with their inner truth. They feel physically and emotionally drained when they work in jobs that contradict their values. They feel spiritually suffocated in relationships without depth or honesty. They feel disconnected in communities that prioritize conformity over authenticity. Their soul mission is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Ignoring it leads to psychological fragmentation. As they grow older, the sense of purpose becomes stronger, not weaker. They feel drawn toward roles that involve healing, teaching, creating, guiding, observing, or revealing truth. This does not always manifest as a formal profession. Sometimes their purpose expresses itself quietly through conversations that change lives, through wisdom that uplifts others, through creativity that inspires, or through emotional resilience that others rely on. Jung would say that rare souls are carriers of archetypal energy, wisdom, intuition, creativity, or transformation. Their purpose is to embody these energies in whatever way life demands. They are not meant to follow society's script. They are meant to write their own. Deep psychological synthesis. What a rare soul truly means. The concept of a rare soul is not mystical, it is psychological. Jung argued that the rare soul is someone who has begun the process of individuation at a deeper level than most. They move beyond the persona. They confront the shadow. They integrate their unconscious. They listen to their intuition. They follow their inner compass instead of societal expectations. These qualities make them uncommon not because few people possess the potential, but because few people embrace the journey. Becoming a rare soul is not about uniqueness, it is about courage. The courage to see truth, the courage to feel deeply, the courage to walk alone, the courage to transform repeatedly, the courage to listen to the self. Alan Watts described the rare soul as someone who has awakened to the illusion of separation. They see their existence as part of a larger flow. They understand that identity is fluid, that reality has layers, and that life speaks through symbols, cycles, and intuition. They move through the world with a sense of inner connection that cannot be taught. At its core, the rare soul is someone who has touched the depths of their being and lives from that depth. They are not interested in superficial success. They are not motivated by trends. They do not measure themselves by external standards. They live by inner resonance. They recognize that life is not a performance, but a psychological and spiritual journey toward authenticity. This depth sets them apart, but it also sets them free. They may walk alone, but they never walk without purpose. They may feel misunderstood, but they understand themselves. They may experience chaos, but they also experience transformation. They are guided, protected, and shaped by forces that others cannot perceive. To be a rare soul is to live with awareness, intuition, symbolic perception, emotional depth, and inner clarity. It is to embody truth in a world that fears truth. It is to feel the world deeply and to respond with wisdom. It is to follow the path that the self lays before you, step by step, awakening by awakening, shadow by shadow, rebirth by rebirth. Rare souls do not choose their path, the path chooses them, and they walk it with the quiet strength of someone who knows that every experience, every connection, every synchronicity, and every transformation is part of a larger design. You don't have a rare soul because you're special. It is to feel the world deeply and to respond with wisdom. It is to follow the path that the self lays before you, step by step, awakening by awakening, shadow by shadow, rebirth by rebirth. Rare souls do not choose their path. The path chooses them, and they walk it with the quiet strength of someone who knows that every experience, every connection, every synchronicity, and every transformation is part of a larger design. You don't have a rare soul because you're special. Rare souls experience life in its full psychological and spiritual depth, while others see only the surface. Part 4. Sign 7-8 plus deep psychological synthesis. Sign 7. You either attract people intensely or repel them instantly. One of the most striking characteristics of a rare soul is the extreme effect they have on others. People do not feel neutral around them. The rare soul's energy acts like a mirror, one that reflects the hidden layers of whoever stands before them.